Hello and welcome to Afternoons here on FNR Football Nation Radio. We are your voice of football. We are talking football this weekend. Europa League overnight, 5 leagues this weekend, getting underway very shortly. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Afternoons here on FNR Football Nation Radio. We are your voice of football here in Australia and around the world, and we are the Afternoons program that brings you all of the latest European international football action. Europa League Match Day 3 headlining the fixtures. Adriano, Monte and Adriano to take you through that over the next 2 hours. Some big results in European football this morning to close out the third match day of European football. As I said, Rick, some big results, some big scorelines as well. Some success for the Spanish sides, not so much success for the French sides. A couple of the English sides picking up nice wins as well. We'll bring you all those results. How many games?
32 matches, or something like that.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
A lot of, maybe 24, I think it is. Anyway, a lot of
Nonetheless,
football.
too
We'll
many.
bring you all that. We'll also preview what's to come this weekend, of course. Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, Ligue 1, Bundesliga. A lot of matches to get through. We'll have you covered with all those previews and all the team news in the lead up to another big weekend of football that will, of course, be dominated by El Clasico, Rick,
Can't wait for that one.
arguably the biggest derby in world football. It is upon us this weekend. It's Sunday evening in Spain, Monday morning local time here in Australia. Cannot wait for that. That will dominate proceedings into our second hour. We'll preview that match in great depth. Of course, we are streaming these 2 hours live via our app and website, footballnationradio.com. This first hour streaming live on Facebook. Jump on and say hello. Big show to come, Rick.
Huge.
The headlines, the results, and we'll get stuck into the analysis from Match Day 3 of the UEFA Europa League.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all the listeners out there. And Chelsea and Arsenal, well, they're the two biggest stories going around. They've made it 3 wins from as many matches in the Europa League after defeating Bate Borisov 3-1 and Sporting Lisbon 1-0 respectively. And of course, as per our Facebook Live title, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. It's not a name you hear us mention too often here. He had a match to remember with a hat-trick, while Denny Abelbeck left it late to secure the points for the Gunners and their 11th straight win across all competitions. And just some of the other results that obviously did occur in the Europa League: Villarreal 5-0 over Rapid Vienna, Dynamo Kiev 2-1 over our boys Rennes, I should say, Eintracht Frankfurt 2-0 over Apollon, RB Leipzig 2-0 over Celtic, and in also that group, Salzburg 3-0 over Rosenborg. Unfortunately, if you're an AC Milan fan, your team lost 2-1, down to 10 men against Real Betis. Belgium, they've been another big talking point here. Well, they have been given the honour of being the #1 ranked team in the FIFA rankings that were released overnight. France are #2, while Gibraltar, Adrian's boys, they've climbed to 190th after winning their last 2 UEFA Nations League matches. The date of the Coppa Italia semi-final and final have been changed. The semis will start and be played, and they will still be played over 2 leagues, but there will actually be a 2-month waiting period between the first and the second legs. And of course, this means, unfortunately, due to that being stretched out, the final will be pushed back until May 15. More in line with what many other leagues around Europe seem to do. And of course, finally, our friends, the Spanish RFEF, the FA, the president, Luis Rubiales, he has reiterated for the umpteenth time that his organisation will formally oppose any plans by La Liga to play matches abroad. FIFA, UEFA and CONCACAF all oppose this move, saying this attacks the integrity of the league. Adrian, for a Friday afternoon, that is a very small news recap. Back to you.
So it's done now.
It's unofficially done. Because officially, La Liga have to be the ones that say, you know what, everyone else is opposing this. We will also pull out of the event. They haven't. We still haven't heard from our good friend Javier Tebas on this recently.
He'll be coming.
He'll be coming.
He'll be dominating headlines Monday.
By Monday, absolutely, he will be dominating. It won't be the Classico. It will be Javier Tebas. We know how this rolls. but they have official or unofficially not commented on this move being stopped and not going ahead.
Okay. That's you've confused me off the back of the headlines there. Conflicting reports all the time. One person saying this, the other hinting at that, and then the other one saying, no, I was never aware of any of all of that. So, bizarre. I still can't get my head around why the Spanish Federation, the president, everyone involved there, didn't get this ticked off by the relevant authorities before pulling the trigger. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. I think it certainly has legs, but I don't know, Rick. I don't know. I think in the end now it won't go through, and I've said that I'd be confident it would. I just don't think it will now. Just one too many issues.
I was going to ask you, what do you think 2 months out now? I seem to ask you once every couple of weeks. What do you think? I'm still going to go with my original move, which is they'll play this one, and then they'll renegotiate the next 14.
Yeah,
and I think because
I agreed with that. But again, all of these reports now, it just feels like it might be a little too hard to get over the line this early.
Yeah, I can see exactly where they're coming from in that respect, but I think with the amount of publicity, firstly, this is generated. With the amount of...
Maybe it's their plan.
Maybe. Hey, a little bit of a nice thing, a nice undertone to get this all going and get it pumped up. But I think with all the plans, with the ticketing, the accommodation, everything that has been organised thus far, I think it might be too late to actually say, you know what, we've organised this trip to America for a La Liga match. We now have to pull it. I think it might be just that little bit too late.
Okay. We will see. I'm sure there's more of that to come. But of course, when we talk Spanish football, what will dominate headlines this weekend? Barcelona, Real Madrid, El Clasico. Silvio's come through sounding good, but can't see that Barca jersey in the background. That's because we're still waiting for it to be sent through to us, unfortunately. But that will be on show, Silvio. Don't you worry about that. We'll have it front and centre, Rick.
We will.
For weeks and weeks on end. But looking forward to that match. Again, full preview of Barcelona, Real Madrid, second hour in depth. We will touch on it a little later in this hour.
We couldn't actually just put the Real Madrid jersey up. That would be kind of... We do have one in the background, but we won't get one out. We'll wait and savour until we actually do get the Barcelona one, only to sort of make it a little bit fair and equal.
Well, we have the Milan, Manchester United, Juventus shirts behind us here.
And the Liverpool behind you.
The Liverpool one behind us. Of course, that's dominated headlines this week. European football, Champions League, Europa League, United, Juve playing, of course. But we will get that Barca shirt up and running as soon as possible. But let's get to the Europa League results from the morning before we touch on your other news stories there, Rick. Look, you highlighted Arsenal and Chelsea as the big stories. There are multiple stories that's come out of the weekend, but we will start there with the English sides and we'll work our way through because, I suppose it was a fairly positive morning in the end for the English sides. And overall, this week of action in Europe, well, so-so for English sides because in the Champions League, Tottenham struggled again. Manchester United, very poor. Liverpool and City, quite clinical. And Chelsea and Arsenal have continued to perform well here. And no surprise, it's those four sides that currently occupy the top four positions, along with Tottenham, of course, in the Premier League. So good to see their good form domestically continue in Europe. We'll start with Chelsea, 3-1 over Bate Borisov.
Obviously, the big positive has to be without Eden Hazard, how would this Saudi lineup go and how would it work? Yes, there is the quality. We are not going to dispute that whatsoever. But you just wanted to know what Sadi's plans were going to be and whether he would be wanting to try and take this competition incredibly seriously and get a result here to sort of ensure that the other three matches he could sort of play, I wouldn't say a weakened team, but at least what is considered to be his second string team.
Take the foot off.
Take the foot off. Playing Pedro there instead of Hazard. Hazard obviously has that back injury. That was a nice move. Ruben Loftus-Cheek was probably the other interesting one. Yes, he is an English international, but he hasn't sort of been able to establish himself in this Chelsea lineup considering who is in the midfield. No N'Golo Kante as well. Cesc Fabregas sort of stepping into that role there. No Ross Barkley. So there were a few different names being used. No Marcus Alonso with Emerson Palmieri. Obviously, we know a few of the other names that flow around. Gary Cahill and Anders Christensen were used in goals, in defence, instead of obviously David Luiz and Antonio Rudiger as his best two centre-back combination. So there were certainly a brand new set of faces. And what happened after 8 minutes? Well, 2-0. Straight out, 2-0. Chelsea put the afterburners on and tried to kill this match very, very quickly.
That was the case, Rick. And one of the men you highlighted, incredibly, got both those goals and then went on to get a third.
And his third was probably better than his other two.
Now, You know how many goals previous to this game that he'd actually scored for the Blues?
Wouldn't have been too many, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, it was none, so it wasn't many at all. No goals. He had scored for actually, sorry, one. He had scored one goal in the 15-16 campaign. He'd scored a few goals for the under 21 Chelsea side. Spent some time on loan away at Crystal Palace and scored a couple there in the 17-18 campaign. But has now gone and, well, I suppose tripled his previous tally of one with a hat-trick in this game. Chelsea win at 3-1 against a Bate Borisov side that have solid European experience, and a Bate side who they did end Chelsea's goalless, their clean sheet streak in this competition by breaking down the Chelsea backline for the first time in the competition.
Scrappy goal.
Nevertheless, they get through, and a Bate side who are still in the running despite that result because of the other result in this group, which we'll get to shortly. But again, Chelsea, even looking at the lineup, obviously Kovacic, Fabregas alongside Loftus-Cheek in midfield, Pedro, Giroud, Willian up top, and those changes defensively that you mentioned. First string side, second string side, they're a class above, and this is a side that will compete in this competition irrespective of the 11 fielded by Maurizio Sarri. And I think the longer they go in this competition, the more serious they take it, the very, very stronger their chances are of winning. And I like where they're at the moment, both domestically and in Europe.
I still think they'll probably win this tournament over, of course, the English Premier League. I think they'll want to definitely assure themselves of Champions League football, considering how tight that race is.
They'll certainly finish top four in England, though, you'd think.
Just in case something should happen. Just in case. They will probably do what Atletico Madrid did last season, where they confirmed their spot, even though they obviously did finish in the top three. They will want to win this tournament. Definitely.
Chelsea 9 from 9 in terms of points, 6 clear of PAOK, Vidi and Bate, who are all on 3 points. And that's the interesting development now about this group because, well, you said Chelsea wanted to take the foot off. That they can do.
Yeah,
that
one foot in the next round.
They go to Bate in the next game, they win that, they're certainly through, they're guaranteed of progression. But in the other match overnight, incredibly, Rick, PAOK have lost 2-0 at home to Vidi, who pick up their first win and first goals of the campaign. So Vidi win at PAOK. PAOK last round won at Bate 4-1, and Bate won at Vidi on the opening day. So all of those sides picking up wins on the road, and their home records are all winless. So strange group. I don't know who will go through with Chelsea. I would have tipped PAOK given where they were at after getting that win over Bate, of course, in the previous round to really cruise through here. But that's shocked 2-0.
You got a coin? That might be the only way we actually determine this group.
To the studio still, Rick.
We'll work it out maybe after the break or after the hour's over.
So
we might look into it.
Vidi get the shock result, and Chelsea, as a result, are certainly
they're through.
Through.
1 foot in the next round.
Almost guaranteed to finish top. So Ruben Loftus-Cheek steals the headlines, though. His hat-trick, first of his career in a Chelsea shirt, first of his career in any kind. Incredible, but they win 3-1. Winners everywhere for Maurizio Sarri. Now, the other English club that were in action, Rick, Arsenal, 1-0 away to Sporting Lisbon. A different side as well, fielded by Unai Emery for this one. Welbeck getting the goal 12 minutes from time. But again, their side, irrespective of who plays as well, the depth really a telling factor. Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang and Welbeck starting up top. As I said, Welbeck getting the goal. Too good. 1-0, they get the points against Sporting, who were previously perfect in this competition, and Arsenal also now with 1 foot in the round of 32.
You just now wonder what Arsenal will do and how serious it's going to take it. I mean, beating Sporting, well, that was their toughest moment. This has been their toughest game up till now. It's whether they can obviously now continue this run going forward, especially into the next match day. Yes, they have taken care of Sporting at home. It's what they can do now in their own stadium that will determine for me how serious they actually are going to be. Because they had all the chances to score. Guendouzi in particular had a good couple of chances. Aubameyang probably could have had 2 himself. Unfortunately, was just off target by a slight little few centimetres. I just want to see where Arsenal are now at going forward.
Well, we know that their form's good, so they're at a decent place, I suppose. That's another win to add to this growing winning list. It's, what is it now? It's 11 straight wins. 11 straight wins across all competitions, including 3 in Europe. That is a fair return. And with some big games to come, they could potentially continue that and really assert themselves domestically. They've got a big game against Liverpool next weekend, which will dominate headlines in Europe. But a nice clinical win for this Arsenal side, who continue doing wonderful things. Second clean sheet in as many games on the road in this competition as well. Arsenal lead the way in Group E, 9 points from 9, and good to see Welbeck getting on the score sheet as well. So Sporting second with 6. The other match in the group, surprised me, Voskla went to Karabag and won it by a 1-0. And of course, because Karabag were a Champions League participant last season, but 1-0, a goal early in the second half, the difference there. Karabag dominating statistically, but Voskla, the visitors, with the win. An interesting group unfolding. I still tip Sporting to go through with Arsenal. But Sporting against Arsenal, yeah, they had their fair share of opportunities. I think Nani had probably the best opportunity early in the first half. But they didn't have a shot on target in this game. So maybe Voskla with an opportunity to maybe spring a surprise when they next meet in Portugal in match day 6, I think that is, of the competition. But I do believe that Arsenal will certainly top now, Sporting to join them and go through. So a couple of the big boys having a win. Not the same story for one of the other big boys, an Italian giant in AC Milan, Rick. AC Milan 1, Real Betis 2.
Very, very disappointing here if you're an AC Milan.
We didn't predict this as such, but we did predict that Milan would have a tough time getting past a very stubborn Betis outfit, and that was exactly the case. They go down, they lose at home, so that's now 2 straight defeats. A very bad period now for Gattuso, because prior to the defeat to Inter last weekend, 1 defeat all season.
2 in a row.
All of a sudden, 2 in a row, and that's now further pressure on the already under fire tactician.
It is. Unfortunately there for AC Milan, they probably needed this result, to be honest, just to sort of stem whatever issues were starting to arise and sort of the uncertainty that was coming up in relation to Gattuso's future. Yes, you've lost to your direct rival, but you didn't also want to lose in Europe. And that's the other key thing for AC Milan. Unfortunately, they've dropped these points. Not a good look. Not a good look. And considering the start they'd had, 2 wins in their first 2 matches, you would have hoped that this result would have gone your way. We'd be having the same discussion that we're having with Chelsea and Arsenal. 9 points from 9, almost through to the next round. What do you now look forward to? Well, unfortunately here, Betis, they're probably in the box seat to go through first or second, because that group is very, very tight.
And of course, with the return, match day 4 at Betis, makes it all the more difficult for Gattuso's men.
And what was the best part of the game for me is Giovanni Lo Celso's goal, the Argentine international who is on loan from PSG. If you haven't had a look at it, do yourself a favour. A nice little rocket into the top left-hand corner, the outstretched Peperena, not able to get it at all.
That we will do, no problems at all. And Silvio's come through, Giovanni Lo Celso, another young Argentine on the rise, which is awesome for the national team. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Hello to Ari and Jim, who have joined us as well here on the Facebook Live. So Betis get the points, and they go top as a result with the 2-1 win. Olympiacos winning on the road at Dudelange in the other game. Dudelange still without a goal in this competition so far. Another 2-0 loss for them. So they're bottom, I rule them out, but Olympiacos, Milan and Betis still very tough to predict what will take place. And to be fair, Milan, they still have to go to Greece to take on Olympiacos, and they have to go to Betis. So despite being in second, I'd probably say that they risk being eliminated from this one. They've got a 2-point advantage over the Greek club, but Olympiacos at home, we know, a very different prospect.
They need that at least 1 point on the road. Whether it be a win, whether it be a draw, they need to get a result in their favour in order to just calm the nerves down and hopefully aim to progress out of this group.
Cutrone came off the bench in the second half to get the only goal. It was 2-0 at that point, finished 2-1. Gonzalo Higuain again failing to score. I don't know where Higuain's at the moment. Not doubting the quality at all. He did score in 5 straight games that he played, but it just feels that when he doesn't turn up and he doesn't score, that Milan really lacking options. And, well, no surprise in those last 2 games now where they've gone down, he's failed to have any major impact on the night. So if he plays well, they win. If he's shut down and he doesn't, they really are a one-trick pony at times up top.
He's the barometer, isn't he? It's like you've just pointed out. But I do wonder, what does Fabio Borini have to do to stay in this team? For me, I think he will have to leave at some stage, and Patrick Cutrone has to be given the keys to the attack alongside Gonzalo Higuain in my eyes. Borini just does not cut it at all. And to be subbed off at half-time really just goes to show where his game is at the moment.
Can they potentially facilitate the three or try and play Borini another way? I think Cotrone needs to be playing more minutes. I think it will be beneficial for his development with Higuain. But, yeah, as I said, I get the feeling they're a bit of a one-trick pony at times. And if Higuain's allowed to find his way through on goal and break down the opposing defence, then Milan are in with a shot. But again, no real impact from Higuain, no real impact from AC Milan. They lose at home again, and the pressure mounts. Gattuso, for me, I think his days are numbered. I've said it a few times, but I just think that this Milan side haven't really shown any level of improvement despite their positive results, but their positive results haven't come against too much. And now the tests become real. Sampdoria, Genoa in the next 3 days at home, Udinese on the road, Betis on the road, Juventus, Lazio. I can't see this Milan side playing this football, getting out of this rut, meaning Gattuso's days for me are certainly numbered. But Milan, unfortunately, lose. Different set of circumstances for another of the Italian clubs in this competition. Well, the other Italian club in this competition, Lazio. They've gone to Marseille, Rick, and they've done... they've put in a nice shift, a 3-1 win against Marseille. Again, a Marseille side who have been very strong at home, both domestically. In this competition, they've been okay so far. Not the case in this one. They go down 1-3 and are on the brink of elimination now from the competition.
You sure they've been okay at home, Marseille?
Have they not been good in the league?
They've lost twice in this league.
Oh, in this
I'm not
league,
talking
yes.
about... Yes.
Domestically, against Frankfurt, of course, they lost the perfect Frankfurt here in this competition. But Eintracht Frankfurt certainly have been a different side in Europe.
Oh, of course.
Domestically, Marseille have been very strong at home. On the road, they've had their issues. This was one that yesterday, when previewing the match, we said they simply have to win in order to maintain the pace with the leaders. But it appears now the finalists of last season risk being eliminated.
They could very much be doing that, and I am waving my hand on camera here because, yes, unfortunately, 3-1. But Lazio, going from a 4-2 9-man demolition against Eintracht Frankfurt to a 3-1 away win. We talk about Jekyll and Hyde. Well, that's what, a 6-goal turnaround at the best of times. That is incredible there by the Biancocelesti. I honestly didn't think that they had it in them, firstly, to do and get such a result on the road, but I guess that maybe shows where Marseille are at continentally. But credit has to be given to Dimitri Payet. Nice little goal there, just to sort of lift and sort of get the Marseille fans at least warming and clapping for that effort that he scored.
They are taking this competition seriously, though, Lazio, and that's why we were surprised when they did lose that game 4-1 in the last round of the competition against Frankfurt. That too was on the road. But they've played their full-strength side. Were you surprised by that at all? Because Lazio have had a busy schedule and they've got some big games to come. You're surprised that they're playing Milinkovic-Savic, Immobile, and all their other stars, because Inter at the weekend, that's as important a fixture as they've had all season.
I just wonder if they are taking this block, and at least by the block I mean the Marseille game and this Inter game, that seriously, that they actually want to try and prep their players to peak for 180 minutes, not just 90. Sure, that makes sense. It may hurt them, though, against Inter, and we know all the direct rivalry that happened last season with regards to playing the Europa League versus the Champions League. But I think that's what Simone Inzaghi has actually done. He's actually said to his players, you know what? You're going to get 2 full matches. I want your utmost best to come out.
Well, it's a big period, but I believe that. I'm in agreement with you there, because this Marseille and Inter little period is then followed by a home match against Spal, which they should be confident of winning. Having said that, though, Spal did go to the Stadio Olimpico last weekend and had a win there against Roma. We will see. But then, of course, there is the return against Marseille, match day 4, where Lazio now can pretty much secure their passage through to the next stage of the competition before a Sassuolo clash and then the international break. So, wonderful result for Lazio now, and it will come down to, I suppose, in this group, what they do against Eintracht Frankfurt in the return match. That one coming up on match day 6, that will be.
The last one of the day, yes.
Amazing. The other match in this group, Apollon losing 2-0 at Eintracht Frankfurt.
No
so
surprise.
Frankfurt, perfect 9 from 9.
No surprise at all. Eintracht Frankfurt are the best team in this league, at least on form. You can't go 3 wins from 3 and not be doing so well. So well done to them.
Great result for the Bundesliga club. Their perfect start continues. let's go through to the Spanish sides, Rick. So obviously Betis, we touched on a very nice win against Milan on the road, but great fortunes for Sevilla and Villarreal, Villarreal have had no success in La Liga this season. They've been quite poor, but a 5-0 win over Rapid Vienna here. They were at home, 3-0 at the break. It finished 5. They were down to 10 as well late on and still scored. Finished 5-0, and a dominant night ends with a dominant result, and they go to the top of this group. Their first win of the competition. This group is very, very tight indeed. Villarreal, Rangers, Rapid Vienna, Spartak Moscow. They're unbeaten, 10 goals in 3 games, and they lead the way after that 5-0 win.
Good luck trying to pick a winner out of this group.
That's impossible.
That's the problem. Is what 2 teams are on 5, and I think Rapid Vienna are on 3. So
Spartak on 2.
Absolutely, still are in the mix and in the hunt to even get through this group. So I'm not going to be daring to predict it, but maybe on the back of all that, no one anticipated 5-0 from Villarreal.
This was the biggest surprise, I'd say, of the entire match day. 5-0 win.
Between that and maybe the result that we'll touch on very, very soon in Seville, they'd be the two that really did shock everybody in terms of the enormities of their victories.
Well, they'd only had 1 win since the middle of last month. They had no wins in their last 4. Villarreal come out and put 5 past Rapid Vienna. They lead the way. The other game in that group finished 0-0 between Rangers and Spartak Moscow. So Spartak still without a win, but still in the hunt. Rangers and Villarreal, 1 win, 2 draws, still unbeaten. Rapid Vienna third after 2 straight losses to Rangers and Villarreal, all to play for in Group G. Sevilla, as we touched on, well, not a surprise, but they've had a 6-0 win at home. Their form is legitimate here, Rick. They're a side. They are a serious side. They will be a serious force in this competition, and perhaps a smoky to go very deep in this competition yet again. We know they've had great success and fortune in the Europa League in recent years. They came up against a side who were, well, that's now 5 straight defeats for them, but Sevilla, a 6-0 win, bouncing back from that 4-2 defeat to Barcelona at the weekend, which they went down fighting. Really like where Sevilla are at, and good for them to bounce back from that shock loss to Krasnodar in the previous round. They're back top of the group.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is they did suffer that 2-1 loss to the Russian team. Jekyll and Hyde for me at the moment with Seville in Europe. Unfortunately, it's similar to what they've done previously, even at the very start of the season, even all of last season. Yes, we know that because they had to qualify, their team is much more match fit compared to a lot of teams. So that's why I'm not going...
Well, that was a big talking point, of course.
I'm not going early to saying that Seville are a smoky to even maybe make it, say, a quarterfinal or a semi-final. Sure, if you look at their past record and you look at their historical record, well, winning 3 in a row says, well, they do take this competition very seriously. But I just want to see where Sevilla are at come, say, February, March, when everybody else is caught up to them. They are a lot more primed in terms of their match fitness. And maybe do we start to see a little bit of fatigue in the Rojiblancos?
You have to be happy where they're at, though. But this group is a thrilling group because it's Group J. Sevilla, Krasnodar and Standard Liège all on 6 points. Standard Liège picking up a 2-1 over Krasnodar this morning. So they've all beaten each other up top there, and Krasnodar this match they led at half time, but then Standard Liège pegged them back with a winner in the 93rd minute. And the reason why that's quite fascinating is because in the previous game, if you recall, Krasnodar actually went behind to Sevilla and then scored 2 late goals, including one I think in the 88th minute. So similar set of circumstances here. The 3 teams, as I said, on 6 points after 3 rounds of football.
I think we're going to have to get the coin out for this one.
Tough to predict.
Very tough.
Absolutely. Very, very tough to predict. But Sevilla there, you'd have to fancy, just given their scoring power, that they will be able to maintain the pace and go through. Standard Liège or Krasnodar, the other one that you wouldn't anticipate would go through. Akhisar, the other team in that group who Sevilla took care of this morning, they're currently bottom in the Turkish Super League, so form domestically
not very good,
and in Europe not going well at all. Other results from the morning, Rick. Let's go to some of the notable sides and then we'll wrap up all the other results. Sure. Fenerbahce, a 2-2 away to Anderlecht. Fenerbahce, another side, if my memory serves me well, that aren't playing too well domestically. I think their recent form has been okay. I'm just going to get up the Turkish Super League standings because I remember covering this earlier in the week. Fenerbahce in Turkey, Rick, I'm spot on. 15th place, 1 point clear of the drop zone. So their form domestically also quite poor, and in Europe, well, not so much success either. Just one win so far against Tranva, but they had a 2-2 this morning with Anderlecht, who picked up their first point of the campaign. So Fenerbahce not playing the best football at the moment. The other game in that group, Dinamo Zagreb, with a 2-1 win on the road to that Tranva side. Another game played in front of absolutely no one, Rick.
Not a good look, unfortunately, is it?
It's not. The Slovakian outfit with that home band there. So that's how that one finished. Leipzig, a 2-0 win over Celtic. Leipzig were heavy favourites coming into this game. Just shows where Celtic are at the moment. Another club who have played...
What are they? 4th? 5th at the moment?
Another club who have been in Europe very regularly, but in Celtic, they've got themselves back to second now, but they are 6 points adrift of Hearts atop of the table. The intriguing thing about this, Rick, is that if you don't know, this weekend, the Scottish Cup, Hearts and Celtic meet in the League Cup semi-final. I believe it's the Scottish League Cup semi-final this weekend. And Celtic risk being eliminated from that competition. They risk, obviously, the threat of Hearts in the league domestically and not playing all that well in the Europa League either at the moment, and taken care of quite convincingly by the impressive Leipzig this morning. So the Bundesliga side really stamping their authority. That's another defeat to Celtic in this group, who have only beaten bottom place Rosenborg at this point. They went down Rosenborg this morning 3-0 to Salzburg. So Salzburg really playing some nice football.
The Red Bull teams are doing quite well in that group, aren't they?
Of course, the Red Bull, Salzburg and Leipzig. Dabur with a double for Salzburg. He leads the goal-scoring charts in this competition with 5 goals to his name for Salzburg. Just some of the other results before we move on. Zenit St. Petersburg had a 2-1 win at home to Bordeaux. Besiktas lost 2-4 at home to Genk. Rangers 0-0 with Spartak, as we said, and Salzburg and Malmö played out a 1-1 draw. But they're the results from the morning that was in the UEFA Europa League. Matchday 4, of course, to come in a fortnight's time. But plenty of action on the pitch. That is the end of another week of European football. Breathe, Rick. Let's get to your other news headlines for the day, and let's go to the FIFA rankings. Correct me if I'm wrong. Belgium, top of the world for the first time, outright in their history.
So if you recall, the last time these rankings came out, they came out, 4 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer ago. And the ranking system, because it had changed, had put both Belgium and France as equal first.
That's right.
This is on
the
back
of identical points.
Identical points. This is obviously on the back of France winning the World Cup and their 2 UEFA Nations League matches, the one against Germany and the one against the Netherlands, and of course Belgium with their 1 UEFA Nations League match and their friendly win. So they were identical at the time. Now there is that little bit of a difference. It just goes to show how important these matches that are now being played for points are. Belgium, the Red Devils, lead the entire FIFA rankings.
Incredible. Deserved, but incredible. They've had some very nice results in recent weeks, and I'm sure plenty more to come.
So just to run you through at least the top 5 and the top 10, Brazil into 3rd, Croatia after their World Cup 4th. That's the ones that are a little strange. If you think about their big losses that they've had in the UEFA Nations League, they must have obviously built up enough points to stay up there. On. England up to 5th, Uruguay dropped down to 6th, Portugal, Switzerland, Spain, Denmark round out the top 10.
So Denmark's still in at 10, Colombia 11, Argentina are back to 12, Chile at 13, Germany up to 14, Holland in 15, Mexico 16, and Italy are back up into the top 20, Rick. They're at 19. So Sweden 17, Wales 18, Peru in 20. Interesting. I'd never read into these things too much / not at all, Rick, because when you see some of those sides that are in those positions, they don't make too much sense. But some of the brighter stories from it, the biggest move in terms of points, just for a few of the underrated nations, or the I suppose the nations don't get much credit.
The underachieved.
Zimbabwe had the most positive run in recent times in terms of points. In terms of ranking, Gibraltar, they're up to 190, Rick, which is an all-time high, obviously off the back of their first ever international wins, that duo there.
Congratulations.
Well done to them. Congo and Mozambique both dropped the most points. Mozambique dropped down 9 ranks in this period as well. So an interesting interesting developments there. Of course, they'll be updated post the next international break, and always a nice talking point. But I suppose for me, the best story, Gibraltar moving up to an all-time high, 190th.
Those 2 wins, one over Liechtenstein, that was the big one.
And the Armenia one as well.
Armenia won the 1-0, so very, very good news there for the very small European nation.
But Belgium create history, first time ever outright leaders of the rankings.
Are they the best Belgium team now?
Are they the best Belgium team ever?
Ever. This is obviously going up against sort of the 84, 86 Enzo Stiefel type team. This is going up against what we saw in, say, the mid to late 90s.
Yep. Of course, for me, yes, they're certainly on par. They win something, there's no doubt about it. Plain and simple. Will they win something, though?
That's the question we all want to know,
I still don't think so.
Euro 2020, they look like they are primed. You just have to wonder how they will go up against those sort of teams that either are coming up or finish that little bit above them at the FIFA World Cup.
I don't think they will. I don't.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on Facebook Live or on Twitter. Do get involved. What do you reckon? Belgium to win Euro 2020? Or is it somebody else that might sort of sneak ahead of them? Because as we have touched on, the new number 1 in the world after the FIFA rankings are Roberto Martinez's men. The other interesting point is, how will they go post Thierry Henry?
We'll see.
That's another one.
They're all factors. At FNR_radio if you'd like to tweet us your thoughts there, but not for me. I think the French will still be too good. Germany, I'm sure, will bounce back, but Spain are certainly the one that I think will be a force to be reckoned with there. Now, we've got plenty of action to come, of course, in the league competition at the weekend, but talk to me quickly about the Coppa Italia. You mentioned that the dates have changed. Firstly, why? Secondly, to when? And third, what does that even mean?
Okay, so to provide a very small nutshell, what has happened is the Coppa Italia, the semi-finals are always played over 2 legs.
They are.
And they're usually played in and around February. So the first leg is usually played at the start of February. The second one is played towards the end of February. What they have done now is said, well, no, we're actually going to play this over an expanded period. This is to obviously...
In terms of the legs?
In terms of the 2 legs.
Okay.
Because what this will
that's
hopefully...
ridiculous, but go on.
Well, hear me out. It's actually not that ridiculous.
Sorry.
And why it's not that ridiculous... Sorry, I'm about to fall over. Why it's not that ridiculous is because when you factor in particular, what Juventus have done in the Champions League, the Coppa Italia ends up getting shifted for them. And it ends up getting shifted because they seem to be the team that goes the furthest in the European competition.
Yep.
So they are doing this in essence to accommodate Juventus, but in essence to also accommodate, hopefully, other big direct rivals to the Bianconeri to go very far in their respective continental competitions. So maybe Lazio to make it into the Final Four, maybe a Milan to do the same thing, obviously Inter, Roma, everybody else, as I've mentioned. What this also then means later on is the final itself, which is usually played in and around sort of the Champions League semi-final legs, gets pushed back to basically the last week of football that is played. And that is around sort of that 15th of May, when the finals of all the German Cup, the FA Cup...
That's what the FA Cup does. The FA Cup plays after the last round of the Premier League season.
Correct.
So
it's essentially falling in line
but
with
does that. Not... Okay, but hypothetically speaking, Juventus have done the domestic double the last 4 seasons. Very likely they'll do that again. If they get there and they have a Champions League final, is that not too busy of a schedule for them?
Well, the Champions League final then is played, I think it's the
last Saturday
3rd
in
of
May,
June, I think it is.
Or maybe it's
I think it falls
regardless,
over.
It's that late May,
but
early June
But it gives them that, 3-week period. So,
yeah.
And it could be the same with an English Premier League team.
They've had those issues. They've had those issues in recent seasons. Last Cardiff 2017, Juve were in the Coppa Italia final, and they had to play it 2 weeks before the Champions League final. You risk injury. You risk. There's those elements
but
as well.
Every team risks that. I mean,
Yeah,
but that's the same. The German Cup is played after the Bundesliga season. The FA Cup is played after the EPL season.
Yeah. No, I take that point. But normally, in this case, with the Coppa Italia, given its flexibility in recent seasons, I understand the date change. But if they were just to leave it where it was, or even make it a little earlier in the campaign, if Juventus have already, hypothetically speaking, have wound up the title and the cup, then they can take the foot off and prepare for the Champions League final, not risking injury. It's like playing a cup final on the eve of a World Cup. Of course, look at Mo Salah with Liverpool. Yeah. Of course, you're going to go all out there and play your best. But it's only the Coppa Italia. It's not a Champions League. You don't want to risk anything taking place.
At the same time, though, when has the Coppa Italia usually been played on? It's been played on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. So is there really that much of the world's eyes focusing on a cup at that time?
No.
Bring it on to a Saturday or a Sunday, so you start to at least say, the season is now completely done. This is our final
No, I understand
spectacle.
that.
Enjoy.
Look, commercialisation opportunities, I think that's the cap they've got on at the moment. They know their game is on the rise, and they know that eyes are now starting to be on these competitions for various reasons, and as a result, they're trying to commercialise every element that has previously not been the case. 1st of June will be the Champions League final this season at the Wanda Metropolitano. You remember 5 or 6 seasons ago, they changed this. Maybe not even. It used to be, the final used to be midweek in the Champions League.
Many years ago.
You know what I'd say? I recall the first final I watched on a weekend was Inter Bayern Munich 2010. So I would say that or the season prior was when they actually changed it. The Champions League final used to be played the Tuesday, Wednesday evening that the current matches are played.
Going back a fair while.
Fair while. Yeah. If anyone knows that fact, I'd be curious to know when, just out of curiosity. But that was the case there, and obviously the Coppa Italia now looking to accommodate the commercialisation of it, which obviously UEFA have well and truly done with their product there. Again, this season's final, the 1st of June, local time, in Madrid, Atleti's Wanda Metropolitano. Should be a wonderful event. Any other news, or should we get into the action?
Let's get into the action.
All right. Let's get into the action from the weekend. We do have other news. We do have transfer stories. We will touch on that in the second hour. But let's gloss over, just for our Facebook Live fans here, let's gloss over what is to come this weekend in the final 20 minutes across Europe's top 5 club competitions. And let's start in Spain, where undoubtedly the biggest match of the weekend will take place. And we will cover this match in serious depth in the second hour, so do stay tuned for that. Barcelona, Real Madrid, El Clasico, late Sunday afternoon, early evening in Spain, early Monday morning here in Australia, 2:15 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, live on beIN Sports. This will be a very intriguing watch for many reasons. We know the absence of Messi. We know, obviously, Ronaldo no longer there. And I don't like talking about Ronaldo because he has nothing to do with Real Madrid. But the facts are neither of those two players will be there for the first time in over a decade.
Feels weird saying that, doesn't it?
Very weird. The facts also is that there is so much on the line for different reasons. Normally these are title meetings. This is not the case. Real Madrid are playing as poorly results-wise as we've seen. They're, what are they, 6th or 7th? 7th in the league. All to play for. They haven't won in their last 4 La Liga fixtures, and they go to Barcelona, who ended a 4-game winless streak at the weekend against Sevilla. All to play for, but different things on the line.
If you recall back to last season in particular, this has actually got a very, very similar feel to what happened in the first Clasico last season. Real Madrid started fairly poor. I won't say they started great. They started fairly poorly. Barcelona obviously pretty much ran away with the title from the get-go. But this is a very similar feel, and I at this stage, very briefly analysing it, I think it's going to have a very similar scoreline by the end of it.
So you're referencing the first Clasico at the Bernabeu last season. So that was just after Real Madrid had returned from the Club World Cup?
Yes.
So that was their first match back from the Club World Cup. They had won. Zidane had held on to his job as a result. And yes, you're right, Barca went there and won 3-0. They destroyed Real Madrid that night. And that was really the end of any hope they had in La Liga. The second Clasico, obviously a little less to play for given the fact that Barca were well and truly clear, but 2-2 is how it finished. And that was a fairly entertaining watch in early May. Remember watching that closely, but Barca went down to 10 on the stroke of half-time.
That's right.
Managed to get ahead. Messi scored that wonderful goal, as he always does, and Bale scored a thunderbolt late on to equalise 2-2. Based on that form, not reading too much into it, but yes, I'm with you. It's at the Nou Camp, this one. A similar sort of feel about it to last season, that first match at the Bernabeu, although Barca were playing much better football at that point in time, and they had Lionel Messi.
That's true, and that's the same thing, obviously, Real Madrid had Ronaldo. But I think with the pressure that he's mounting on this Real Madrid team, their performance, and I'm only going to judge them on what they did in the Champions League this week. Yes, they got the win. No, it wasn't clinical. Issues with Marcelo. I think these little factors will actually work against Los Blancos in this match. With Barcelona, what we saw against Inter, I thought was just they started to ramp up their game. Yes, they worked out how to play without Messi against a quality team. And I think ultimately, I'm not trying to put Inter and Real Madrid on the same pedestal, but ultimately I think that form that Valverde got his troops to play with might be translated here on Monday.
Yeah, I can take that. And look, I think there will be goals in this game. We're always a bit cautious whether or not we predict goals or not, but there hasn't been a clean sheet by any side in a Clasico at the Nou Camp since 2010. So I think there will be goals on offer, and I think what we've seen from Real Madrid this season is enough to convince me that they will be there for the taking if Barca turn up. But having said that, Barcelona's clean sheet against Inter at the weekend was their first clean sheet in 7 games. So I think both sides will be exposed at the back at times, and I certainly think it'll be an entertaining spectacle. And I do think the Barcelona's home dominance and home, the fact that they're at the Nou Camp in this one, will get them over the line. But then where to from here for Real Madrid? That's the question. Lopetegui, again, more reports about Conte. Conte's brother, I think, has come out and denied the fact that he's been in talks with Real Madrid. But regardless of who, what and when, the pressure will be on Lopetegui, and a Clasico defeat is as bad as it gets.
It is. Unfortunately, there's no way around it. You lose these matches, and with the performances that your team are sort of giving out at this stage, yeah, your job is on the line.
Can't wait for that one. As I said, Monday morning local time here in Australia. Barcelona take on Real Madrid. A big one indeed, so do not miss it. Barca Real Madrid, full recap of that match Monday, but full preview, in-depth preview and analytical preview in our second hour via our app and website, footballnationradio.com. Other matches to come this weekend. Now, other matches to come this weekend in Spain, Rick. We have Atleti taking on Sociedad. Should be a nice watch. Atleti will win this 1-0. Mark my words on that. Looking forward to that. Other games include Valladolid Espanyol will be a cracking game. Rick, if Valladolid win, this is the first match of the round. Do you know where they will finish after that game in terms of the standings?
Depending on where everything works out, second, maybe possibly first if they win by enough goals.
They will be equal top. Impossible to win by enough goals because the goal difference, they will need
it's
to
very,
win 10-0.
very big.
But they will be equal top with Barcelona, officially second, with Barcelona if they beat Espanyol, who currently occupy that second place. This is the opening match of the round. This is taking place.
Great scheduling there by La Liga, to be honest.
This is taking place tomorrow morning, or tonight's local time if you're listening in from Europe. What a match to kickstart match day 10 of La Liga.
I can't wait. I actually will get up to watch this one.
This will be a cracking game.
I'll actually give you a full analysis on it. I really want to see what Leo Suarez can do in this one. He's a striker, obviously, for good old Valladolid. He has shown a little bit of form this season. The problem is he's been incredibly clinical. 4 shots, 2 goals. I'd like to see if he can get a few more chances, a few more shots on target, and maybe he might be the one that ultimately leads the purple and white up to the very top echelon of La Liga.
Valladolid, the form side of La Liga. Didn't think I'd be saying that after 9 rounds of football, 4 straight wins, but they do take on the surprise packets of La Liga in Espanyol, an Espanyol side who have only lost 2 games this season, and they lost them both on the road to Real Madrid, fair enough, and that was very unlucky. And they lost to Alaves, who are currently third. So their form is very strong indeed. They've been very strong in recent weeks. Nice win at the weekend, last weekend against Huesca, 2-0. And if they win, they go outright top by 2 points clear of Barcelona. So all to play for at Valladolid, taking on Espanyol. That one kicking off at 6 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Other games this weekend, Girona take on Rayo Vallecano. Bilbao, Valencia. Can Valencia finally win? Probably
Who
not.
knows?
They're on the road. That'll be interesting. Celta take on Eibar. Levante, Leganés. Getafe take on Betis, who will be looking to continue that hot form from the Europa League. Levante, Leganés, as I said. Barca, Real, Alaves, Villarreal, and Sevilla, Huesca. Rick, how many in this one between the Sevilla side, who are really putting the smaller, weaker sides to the sword across both the Europa League and La Liga?
At least 3.
At least 3.
On the back of obviously the 6 that they scored this morning in the Europa League, 3 a minimum for me. Andres Silva, Wissam Ben Yedder, Pablo Sarabia, working like a tree.
I think there could be a lot of goals in that game. I'm not going to say 8 like Barcelona put by them, but I think 5 or 6 if I'm going out there. It's a bit disrespectful to the Minos Huesca, but I think that there'll be lots of goals on offer. Let's go to the Premier League. Some key fixtures to come this weekend in England. None more so, Rick, than the clear one, Tottenham, Manchester City. This is very important for Tottenham. We know that the quality down the bottom of England isn't as high as it's been in previous seasons. Tottenham now need to win these direct games.
Yeah.
They've got some really good form coming in, some real positive performances in wins that they've had to work hard for and grind out. 3 straight clean sheets in this competition, but they take on the favourites to win the whole thing in City. I don't know what to make of this one, to be honest. They were poor midweek in the Champions League with Tottenham. City were clinical. But I just have a good feeling about Tottenham here that may be able to spring a surprise.
Well, they've gotten these results over the last couple of seasons, if memory serves me correctly. They actually have been able to defeat City, and quite convincing. I think there was a 4-1 a couple of seasons ago, if memory serves me correctly. So, Mauricio Pochettino's
City took care of them 4-1. Tottenham did have a 2-0 win a couple of seasons back at home.
So there you go. It was the reverse. My apologies. But there is a feeling around that all of a sudden, sure, they bottled it up against PSV. Sure, they haven't been the greatest team in the Champions League, but they are a different outfit in the English Premier League. So,
and at home, which helps.
It does help. The other thing is, obviously, if Tottenham somehow do manage to get the 3 points, where do they go to?
They go top.
They go top.
You wouldn't have predicted. This is very important.
You wouldn't have predicted this at any stage that Tottenham would be leading the standings, considering the quality of those teams that are occupying the top spot at this stage.
De Bruyne back for City. I think City, again, I have hopes for Tottenham and I have a good feeling, but I think City will just be too good on the night. But City have dropped points on the road twice this season to Liverpool.
I also wonder how the pace of someone like a De Bruyne, Mahrez, Sane, depending on who ultimately Pep does go with, how they can handle the likes of Davison Sanchez, Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen. 2 of those 3 don't really have the speed to handle those sorts of guys. That's where an issue will lie for me, and I think that might be the weakness that ultimately might bring down this Tottenham team if I am to give a Sky Blues perspective on it all.
Big game for Tottenham and City. You just get the feel that if Tottenham lose this and they're 5 points adrift for City, out of the race for the title. It's early days, but I'd say that, and also that will put their top 4 credentials certainly under pressure. But all to play for. That will be the final game of the round. The other big game this weekend, United host Everton. This is very important for Manchester United's season because lose to a direct rival here in Everton and their top 4 hopes officially, if not already officially, gone.
Yeah, unfortunately, get the result. That's all that matters here for me.
No chance for me to get the result off the back of what we've seen. Everton's side who have been building progressively in recent weeks.
Richarlison will be the one, won't he? If he all of a sudden can find a little bit of space up top, maybe maybe Bernard can help him out.
I like Everton to go to Old Trafford here and get the win. United just not enough. Lukaku obviously against his former side will be an interesting watch. United host Everton at Old Trafford. Again, my tip is Everton to just go there and win. Elsewhere, Brighton host Wolves, Fulham, Bournemouth, Liverpool. Well, how many will they put past Cardiff? We'll see. Southampton, Newcastle. Newcastle desperately looking for that first win of the season and desperately need to get off the bottom of the table.
I just want to know, just go back to that Liverpool match you just mentioned a moment ago. Do Liverpool need to put that big bag past them because of what Manchester City did?
Yeah,
just to sort of level out the goal difference.
Of course, goal difference in England is a factor. Yes, perhaps, but probably not. They had a big win midweek in the Champions League. And they just want to bank points, I think, at this stage. They've had a few players injured, obviously. Salah, Martin, they've all actually suffered some sort of injury this season. I just think that they'll just go out there and get the job done, but don't be surprised if they win it by 2 or 3 or more. The other games this weekend, Watford, Huddersfield, Leicester, West Ham, Chelsea go to Burnley, and Arsenal, they go to Crystal Palace, looking to make it 12 straight wins, and that they will, and the pressure they will continue to mount, and Tottenham City, direct rivals meeting, another opportunity for Arsenal also to leapfrog maybe City into top place.
Could they actually do it?
They could. They'll win.
But could they actually top the English Premier League and have all those results somehow?
Not this round,
obviously Liverpool's the one that would ultimately be the big one that would need to fall, but
there is
give them a chance.
But they do take on Liverpool next weekend.
That's right.
So, yes, their time is coming.
And there was a 4-1 for Tottenham. It was 3 seasons ago. I knew it was a little bit longer then, but it wasn't just last season. It was a few years ago.
There you go. Over to Italy, Rick, for the weekend. Again, full previews of these coming up here on afternoons on FNR in our second hour, so stay tuned for that. But we're just glossing over the fixtures and highlights of what's to come. 2 big fixtures in Italy this weekend. Napoli-Roma is one. This is a very important game for both clubs. Of course, a danger game for Napoli at home. They look to maintain the pace with league leaders Juventus. Marek Hamsik breaks the club record for all-time appearances for that proud club. But they take on a Roma side who Well, don't know what Roma will turn up, but the Roma that turned up midweek in the Champions League was good enough. Another account of themselves like that, and they will make life very tough for Napoli in Naples this weekend.
Don't think that, unfortunately, there for Eusebio Di Francesco, that Roma outfit that turned up midweek will turn up on the weekend. I think it's going to be a very similar Napoli outfit that did turn up midweek against PSG that will turn up to this one. So, unfortunately, there for all the Giallorossi supporters, I'm not giving your team too much hope to get the result.
4 wins on the road for teams in this match. So this direct head-to-head fixture, the away team has won the last 4. Again,
I think it's going to be broken here.
I think it'll be broken. Napoli are just too good against Paris Saint-Germain, and a bit more to play for than the Giallorossi, who, if they lose this, will incredibly fall 10 points behind Napoli, who will be in second.
Yeah, not the best start, ultimately, and not the best way to keep going forward there for the Giallorossi.
Roma's crosstown rivals Lazio meet Inter in the other match that we touched on. The nice thing about this match, Rick, is the historical reference here, because remember when these two sides last met at the Olimpico, match day 38 last season, Champions League football on the line. Inter went there, Inter won. They won 3-2. They secured their spot in the Champions League this season, and as a result, they have now obviously enjoyed the riches of what it means to be playing Champions League football. Lazio will be hungry to avenge that defeat, and here's their opportunity to do so on match day 10.
Well, Inter and Lazio, they've always been generally high-scoring affairs. I mean, I think there was 1-0, but the others have sort of had at least 3-4 goals in them. So I'm not saying that there's going to be a lot of goals in this one, but I will say this: Lazio and Inter's defence, in particular Lazio's, has been susceptible to a few leaky goals. And I think with Icardi there, depending on who else can sort of line up and how they're all sort of situated at the net Azzurri in terms of their attack, I think Inter might actually get a couple more than a lot of people do anticipate.
I think this will be quite the opposite. I think it'll be quite a low-scoring game. I think Inter will win at 1-0, but I think that both sides will be. I think both sides will be more focused on not losing this game than actually winning. If I'm being honest, I think risk losing here, and obviously Sampdoria, Fiorentina close behind. This is a really important game early on in the season for their top 4 credentials. So I think that avoiding defeat will be on the agenda in this match, but looking forward to that. That's the final match of the round. Other matches include Atalanta-Parma, Juve go to Empoli. That will be another straightforward win, and they'll bounce back, in my opinion, from their first slip-up domestically last weekend. Torino hosts Fiorentina, Sassuolo, Bologna, Cagliari, Chievo, Genoa, Udinese, Spal, Frosinone, and Milan hosts Sampdoria. This is so important for AC Milan in the lead-up to their midweek make-up fixture that they get the 3 points here. Win this, they join Sampdoria in 5th. Lose this, and they're 6 points adrift of 5th place Sampdoria, and top 4 all but gone.
I'll say goodbye. All of a sudden, should they lose, bye-bye.
Big game, this one. They really need Gonzalo Higuain up and firing. Just quickly go through the Bundesliga and Ligue 1 before wrapping up this first hour. Again, our second hour of the program, afternoons here on FNR, coming up on in our studio via our app and website, footballnationradio.com. Bundesliga, Rick, this weekend. Some big games. Really excited about the Bundesliga this season. But like what we have ahead of us, Bayern Munich go away to Mainz, looking to make it 2 from 2 in this competition. Obviously 3 from 3 in the last week, having won midweek in the Champions League. They'll be confident, but Mainz this season, and Mainz's form this season has been poor, but defensively they've been very strong. So not so sure it's going to be a routine win for the Bavarians.
Like we touched with Gonzalo Higuain and AC Milan in the Europa League, he is their barometer. Robert Lewandowski is Bayern Munich's barometer. Yes, look at all the goals that he has scored over the last 4 days. All of a sudden, if he finds the back of the net, Bayern Munich usually go on to win. I'm going to go with that.
Dortmund take on Hertha Berlin at home.
That's going to be a cracking
match
game.
of the round, no doubt. But what Dortmund did to Atleti, if they drop any points here, I would be very surprised. So Dortmund, for me, to continue. Wolfsburg away to Dusseldorf. Hannover hosts Augsburg. Hoffenheim Stuttgart is a nice match. Nuremberg Eintracht Frankfurt. Leipzig and Schalke, very intriguing. What's next for Schalke, Rick?
Well, the problem is if Schalke don't win, you could almost kiss any hope of actually making, say, a top 6 goodbye. It's as simple as that. I know it's very early on. It'll only be 9 matches into the season.
I'm more concerned about relegation, Rick. Because
well, that's exactly right.
Dusseldorf and Stuttgart pick up results at the weekend, Schalke could be back to the bottom.
That's exactly right. They're going to have to be and do a Monaco, essentially. They're going to have to give up whatever they are doing in Europe to try and focus on
Bizarre
survival.
season for the side that finished second last season. And they're doing okay in the Champions League.
They are.
Strange. The other two games, Bremen host Leverkusen and second place Mönchengladbach away to Freiburg. Mönchengladbach win that match, the opening game of the round. They go top of the table with Dortmund. Just over to the Ligue 1 before we close. A lot of action to come there this weekend. Full previews in the second hour again, in case you need reminding. But looking forward to what's to come this weekend
one
in
big game
Ligue 1
here.
as Marseille host Paris Saint-Germain in what will be the match of the round, the final match of the weekend.
All eyes will be on it. Marseille, obviously, as we touched on, against Lazio, very, very poor in that game. PSG, well, they were just as equally poor, but luckily were able to be saved by Angel Di Maria. It's going to be a few little issues there to actually get through for both teams. Yes, you would say PSG probably to win, but I don't think it's going to be as convincing as a lot of people would be thinking.
I think they'll win. They'll make it 11 from 11. Their dominant start continues, but my eyes will be on Monaco. Thierry Henry, first opportunity to get third opportunity, but first real opportunity to get a win at home to Dijon.
And he will.
And he will, you say?
And he will.
The team that haven't won for 12
I
games
will
since the
tell
opening
you
match day?
why in the second hour.
All right, well, if you want to know why, stay tuned and get in touch in the second hour to hear why they will win. Monaco, of course, Thierry Henry making his home bow for the club. That and plenty more coming up in the second hour. Full previews of El Clasico, all the Spanish football, Serie A, Premier League, Bundesliga and Ligue 1, and all the latest transfer news and views as well. So stay tuned. You're with Adriano Del Monte and Rick D'Andrea, and you are listening to Afternoons right here on FNR Football Nation Radio. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on this Friday afternoon. Of course, we have enjoyed bringing all of the football to you over the last week. We look forward to doing it again. Join us on Monday at the same time. For now, though, from myself, Adriano Del Monte, and Rick D'Andrea, we'll see you next time.